My name is Holly Crawford, and I'm 26 years old. It was 2 o'clock on a Thursday morning when a wave of pain crashed into me like a speeding train. Earlier that evening, I had been feeling an uncomfortable ache in the lower right side of my abdomen, but I kept convincing myself it was just gas or something I had eaten. I never imagined it was the beginning of the worst night of my life. Within moments, that mild discomfort became unbearable. The pain was so intense that I collapsed to the floor. I couldn't stand, and every breath felt like a struggle. Sweat soaked through my clothes while my entire body trembled uncontrollably. Holding on to the bathroom sink, I stared into the mirror, barely recognizing the terrified woman looking back at me. Deep inside, I knew something was terribly wrong. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and called my mother. There was no answer. I called again. Still nothing. Then I tried my father. Straight to voicemail. Panic consumed me as I switched between both numbers again and again, hoping someone would finally pick up. My fingers shook so badly that I almost dropped the phone several times. By the time I had made 17 desperate calls, I was lying helplessly on my kitchen floor, listening over and over to the same voicemail greeting I had heard my entire life. You've reached David Crawford. Please leave a message. I left 3 messages. Each one sounded more frightened than the last. By the final message, I was crying so hard that I could barely speak. Dad. I think I'm dying, please come. No one came. Everything that happened afterward was only pieced together later through the paramedics. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patton, who lived next door and barely even knew me, heard me collapse through the apartment wall. Without wasting a second, she called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was drifting in and out of consciousness. The paramedics later told me my appendix had already burst. They explained that if help had arrived just 30 minutes later, I probably wouldn't have survived. They never actually used the word death, but they didn't have to. I understood exactly what they meant. I was rushed straight into emergency surgery. During the operation, my heart suddenly stopped. For a brief moment, everything went completely silent. There was no bright light, no strange visions, no comforting voices. Only endless darkness. Then, all at once, the silence disappeared. Machines beeped loudly around me. Someone repeatedly called my name. A crushing pain spread across my chest from the CPR compressions as my body fought its way back to life. When I finally opened my eyes in the recovery room, I felt exhausted, confused, and barely aware of my surroundings. A nurse sat quietly beside my bed. The first question that escaped my lips was the only thing on my mind. Did my parents come? She hesitated. The expression on her face wasn't exactly pity, but it was painfully close. She gently explained that my emergency contacts had been notified and that someone had indeed come to the hospital. Before she could continue, my surgeon entered the room. Dr. Reeves pulled a chair beside my bed and sat down calmly. The serious look on his face told me this wasn't going to be an ordinary post-surgery conversation. Holly, he said softly, you went through an incredibly dangerous night. We almost lost you. I nodded weakly. That much, I already knew. Then he said something that completely shattered my understanding of everything. A woman identifying herself as your mother came to the hospital tonight. I looked at him silently. She tried to have you discharged early. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misunderstood him. Discharged? I had literally died on the operating table. Dr. Reeves maintained eye contact as he continued. Our staff explained that releasing you was impossible because your condition was critical. Unfortunately, she became argumentative. The room suddenly felt like it was spinning. He paused for a brief second before speaking again. But the man who paid your hospital bill. Before he could finish, the door slowly opened. Standing there was a man I had never seen before. He appeared to be somewhere in his mid-50s, wearing a simple gray jacket and dark trousers. There was nothing flashy about him, nothing that suggested wealth or importance. He simply looked like the kind of person you instinctively trust. Kind eyes. A calm expression. The quiet presence of someone who carried genuine compassion without needing attention. Dr. Reeves stood, greeted him respectfully, and quietly left us alone.